Good morning. Before I begin, I want to say this. The guys you see over there, we are really tight. We are not just co-workers, we are friends who love each other and even like each other. And we just feel tremendously blessed and honored to work together. So let me introduce you to, they told me how to do this, but that doesn't mean I learned anything. Hey, I did. To the North Central region. The North Central region is quite a large region. We have a lot of territory for 5 people. So I'm going to just give you some statistics, and then we'll talk about some details. We have 11 states that I cover. It goes from Cleveland, Ohio, all the way over to the Dakotas. And I actually found out I'm part of a state I didn't realize was in my territory when I was looking at the map. But I don't believe there's a congregation there. All the way down to Lake Ozark, and then all of Kentucky. And of course, all of the states in between. Not only do we have 11 states, am I doing this wrong, Stephen? Oh, there it is, 66 congregations. And it's an impossible job to reach all of them every year, obviously, but we do what we can. In that, we have 12 full-time pastors. We have 7 part-time pastors. And we have 36 bivocational pastors. That's quite a few, obviously. And our weekly attendance is right around 14, 50, somewhere around there. So it's a large area. And I was listening to the mission developers, and they were talking about the language barriers. We don't have as many language barriers in the States, though I do have Kentucky in my group. You all understand that, don't you? They live down in the holler. Okay, just let me give you one example. When I say the word blue, you think of a color. When I say the word blue to Anthony Mullins, are you here, Anthony? He's not.
Go Big Blue!
Yeah, there you go. Go Big Blue. It's the UK football team, or basketball team, or whatever team. But anyway, our mission in North Central region is the same mission we have in all of the USA. And of course, that is healthy churches. And healthy churches begin with renewal. And we focus on that. We have our outside the walls, and we have other things that our goal is to bring emerging churches renewing up into healthy churches. And of course, we also have along that line, we have emerging leaders. And emerging leaders is not an age-defined position. We want leaders to emerge from every age within our region. A lot of affirmation, and in particular affirmation for the congregations that we consider fellowship groups. We don't consider them fellowship groups, they are fellowship groups. And along that, we tell them to celebrate. When you get to a point of a fellowship group where you're down to 8 or 10 people, and the average age is 82, you probably are not going to go out and do a lot of community service. But we want you to celebrate what you've been and who you are in Christ. And so we focus on that celebration aspect. The next thing we want to talk about is some of the growth that's taking place. We have 4, we actually have 5 now, new pastor installations. Josh McDonald and Heather, he's here and was recently installed in Indianapolis, Indiana. And then we have Joanne Maggie. Dennis is not able to make it, but Joanne is the pastor in Sioux Falls. And Joanne replaced her father, some of you may know. His name was George Allfelt. And George retired at age 80. We figured it was time. He figured it was time. And what a blessing it was for me to go in and place Joanne as a pastor, because George was my pastor when I was 16 years of age. So that was quite an honor for me to be able to install Joanne. Not so much an honor to encourage him to retire. That happens. Kenneth and Lisa Barker, they're in Harvey, Illinois, which is Southside Chicago area. And then Israel Hernandez and his wife Margaret. Israel is not here because he is at a chaplain at our camp, which ended yesterday, or maybe it even ends today in Harvey. And then Tracy. Tracy is, I think, our newest pastor. I ordained her, I think, just about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago. And she and her husband Robert, they had to leave this morning, I believe. But anyway, she is in Mount Sterling, Kentucky. So alongside with the 4 new pastoral installations, we have 4 regional camps. We have the Great Lakes Camp in central Michigan, and that camp is actually our newest camp, and we're going to line it up with a community church so that the camp becomes a community camp, and there's a tie-in between the church and the camp so that kids have something to follow up on. Pathways Camp is one of our oldest camps, one of the first camps to start after we sold the property up in Orr, Minnesota. Northern Lights is up in Minnesota. And Heartland Camp, which is the one that took place last week, is in central Illinois. And I believe Heartland is one of our largest camps in the U.S. I know there's larger ones, but one of the largest. Along with the 4 regional camps, we also have a community camp. And that's in Cincinnati, Ohio. And what that is, we call it West Side because Cincinnati is 2 sides, the east side and the west side, and never the twain shall meet, it seems sometimes. But it's a day camp. They come in at 9 o'clock in the morning, they're there until 3 in the afternoon, and Dustin Lampy and his team just did an amazing job in helping these kids to develop a love for Christ. And the first year we had a team from Southern California, Janet Morrison, and her group came over and helped us out. This year we gathered some people from some of our camps, and the goal, of course, is that the Cincinnati Church will be able to sponsor it. Alongside with that, we have Engaged GCI, which is an annual celebration, and what it is we meet up in the Wisconsin Dells area currently. We're probably going to move that location in a year or 2. It's an annual celebration of weekend where people come in and we have activities for the entire family. I just wanted to share with you this year's theme, Engage Your Neighbor, based on Luke 10 and John 13. And here's the 4 conference learning objectives. So we expect each person to learn these objectives by the time they leave. Understanding that reaching out to your neighbor is a fulfillment of the 2nd great commandment. God's way of inviting us to participate. Identify and clearly define who is your neighbor. Of course, that's based on Jesus' teaching. Identify specific neighbors God has put in our path, because you can't treat everybody the same who you run across, but you identify people that God has placed there for a reason. And then, of course, identify the obstacles and the challenges to reaching out to engaging your neighbor. So this is it's a lot of fun at this particular celebration. I've got just some pictures to share with you on it. You see that it's a family weekend. The first few days, all you see is people hugging each other, and some people dance in the aisles. That was actually a particular message. It's all ages are there. We have a lot of fun. What we do is we have sessions from 9 in the morning till 1:30 in the afternoon, and then the evenings and afternoons are free because we want the family to spend a lot of time together during this event. So it's a good event. So the final thing that I want to do, well, not the final, but almost the final, is community outreach. Across our region, we have all types of different things going on, and I'm just going to highlight some of the titles: prayer walks, soccer, some of you call that football, food pantry, we have some food pantry areas in the city, community Easter egg hunts. Some of our pastors have church buildings with beautiful lawns, and so we invite all the children in the community to come together for an Easter egg hunt, and then invite them in for an Easter service. And those prove to be pretty interesting, and it's really fun to watch children stumble around looking for eggs, and then the parents get really involved because they want their kids to get an egg too, and it's just fun to watch. Games at community events. A lot of our congregations have just gotten involved with the community fairs and community events in the neighborhoods, and just basically providing free hot dogs and free water, or providing a game. And then, of course, tutoring. Some of our congregations are very high in education. A lot of people in the congregation are in the education field, and so they provide tutoring for the local schools. And then T-ball. One of our pastors, Dustin Lampy in Cincinnati, has started a T-ball outreach. His congregation has a gymnasium. Well, the gymnasium is the congregational hall, but they have indoor T-ball. And last year they had about 25 kids. This year they had 40. But the key is Dustin every day has an inspirational talk. And so you have the 40 children plus up to 80 adults. And so he's sharing God's love with them. And then they have the T-ball games out in the field. So it's a lot of fun. Now looking ahead, we have a ministry training center. And you've heard Greg mention that a time or two. And but Greg asked me to share what this means. In our Tom Nebel was here, and he talked about some of the tools in Giant Worldwide that we've learned. One of the tools is to understand there's a difference between a provisional concept, a plan, and a promise. I am a creative voice, and so I think out loud, and so oftentimes when I'm thinking out loud and I'm sharing ideas, people are hearing promises, and I'm being very provisional. And so someone will come up to me and say, well, you promised. I did. Well, here was the conversation. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I was being provisional. So now I have to say, while I'm talking, this is provisional. So the ministry training centers in the U.S. have been provisional for quite some time. And you'll hear my fellow regional pastors talk about it being provisional in their regions at this point. But in Cincinnati, we have gone beyond the provisional, and we've gone to the plan. And we are hoping to have, by the end of 2018, 3 and maybe 4 interns there, because our goal is to have interns working together in ministry. It's kind of like the model that Jesus did, where he sent the disciples out in twos, and we realize that can be very, very effective. The second thing is we have pastoral residents, and we just hired a pastoral resident for Cincinnati, and his name is Patrick Lynn. He's here. Yeah, he's here. I saw him. And then the other thing is we focus on leadership training. Not everybody's going to be a pastor. Not everybody's going to plant a church. But we've got people who want to serve in their local congregation in leadership. Perhaps teaching children church, being a worship leader, working with outreach. So we're going to have sessions of people come in and teach them how to be more effective in leadership. The other thing we do is we do outside the walls follow-up. We had Kathy Detto came in and she did a session on discipleship and small groups, and very, very effective. We also have Michelle and Megan coming in September, and they're going to talk about communities of worship, how to develop your worship, how to develop it in your congregation, how to develop a community of worship. So our ministry training center will be doing that as well. And then in 2019, we plan to have refreshers. Some of you pastors remember refresher programs? Well, we don't have the money to send you to California or Hawaii, so we're going to bring you into a ministry training center. And our goal is, if you're bivocational, we'll bring you in for a weekend, so you don't have to miss work. If you're full-time, we'll probably bring you in for a little bit longer for some intensive training. And the 5 of us are going to be talking with Greg about that in the next few months and planning exactly what we're going to bring up. So we're excited about that. And then church plant. The goal of all of our ministry training centers will lead to a church plant. Now I want to show you, if I have the slide, there was another slide, Stephen, that showed the building. Is it gone? Maybe it is. Well, I want to share you that God is an amazing God, and the reason we're having our ministry training center in Cincinnati is because we were recently given a $1.2 million property. And yes. God is amazing. This property was built only about 19 years ago, and it's the church building you saw the T-ball center in, but it comes with 6.5 acres, plenty of room for expansion, and the man who gave us the building also gave us a good sum of money to help us continue serving the building. So God is a big God that we serve, and I know that in my region we have big plans, we have big goals, but we serve a very, very big God. And so we just pray that we ask that you pray for the U.S. regions, and we thank you for doing so in advance. God bless you.